there'll be a question asking about it. Where's the lap times? But you know, not only that, also in general as well, in terms of accuracy and making sure I'm doing a good job, that brings a lot of stress and pressure. You know, I don't want to be leading people wrong. As as I talked about in the very first video where we were looking at the first 120 cars, the reason that I even started doing this in the first place is that I saw, YouTubers putting out misinformation about vehicle cars, and I don't want to be that person. It seems incredible to believe that I could even be thinking that way, but it's a difficult thing to do, test all these cars, and if certain things, you make certain mistakes or things aren't right or you mess up, I don't want to be doing that. I don't want to be putting out misinformation, especially now when a lot of people look to me for the right information for the cars. And I guess that is now no more evident than it has been as we move to a new game version. In truth, a lot of the lap times that you see now, they need retesting anyway, honestly. Not just because the new versions of the game are coming out and that's going to be at 60 FPS and that will change the performance of some vehicles. Some vehicles will do better at 60 FPS in comparison to 30 FPS and so on. Some will do worse. Obviously we know that frame rate is tied to speed in this game, which is ridiculous, but that's how it is. But also some of the laps are around 5 years old. Over the last 5 years, I've tested so many different vehicles and retested plenty more, but there are some that haven't been looked at since. I did do some testing obviously more than 5 years ago, but I did go back through a lot of the stuff and sort of retest everything at one point, not too long after the PS4 and Xbox One versions of the game came out. So none of the lap times are quite that old, but yes, some of them are. Some of them have been retested, some of them are fine and accurate, but some of them, they might still be accurate, but they certainly haven't been retested for quite a long time. And it's just the natural consequence of time passing. Things need to be done again and things need to be updated, and I only have a finite amount of time to do it. Honestly though, I'm not sure that I have it in me anymore. To put it into some perspective, I've only been able to do what I've done and what I've talked about in the previous videos of this because I've been doing it bit by bit over the last 8 years since covering GTA cars in the end of 2013. If I wanted to test all 663 vehicles in the game again, with every vehicle taking around 15 minutes to test, which is about average, testing alone would take over 165 hours, and that's just for lap time. Double that to 330 hours if you add in top speed testing, and at 40-hour work weeks, that would take me over 2 months of just testing with no time for streaming or making any videos at all. It would just be pure testing for 40 hours a day, 40 hours a week for 2 months. If I chose to stretch that out over the course of, let's say, 1 year, that would be a more manageable 7 hours of testing a week. But then would people be willing to wait that long for all of the lap times? And do I still enjoy it enough to do it in comparison to all the other things that we have going on these days on this channel and on Twitch when it comes to streaming? There's so much more that we do now, racing and in terms of videos that I'm putting out that are arguably somewhat more popular than the testing videos sometimes. And I really, it's difficult to know what I still enjoy and what I don't. I a lot of sometimes I'm doing things because you guys enjoy it more than others. For a long time, the testing I've probably done just because it's helpful rather than me actually enjoying taking these cars out. Ironically, I would say some of the most enjoyable testing I've done is some of the more off-the-cuff vehicles that you can't normally race with, like I was talking about in the previous video. But it's not just about sort of feasibility either. It's about whether I'm even capable and how relevant my testing can be. I've always tried to make my testing as relevant as possible by choosing a relatively well balanced track and minimizing as many variables as possible. But the variables are only ever increasing, from all the short shifting and brake boosting that's possible these days, but only the racing community does, to the differences in racetrack styles. The game is just a mess of inconsistencies. Tracks are being created to stop excess boosts, but only in the racing community, and then only in certain communities for that matter as well. If you go to a Rockstar Premium race, it's all open and you can curb boost wherever you want. If you go to a stunt track, it's all completely flat. Some cars are quicker with lowest suspension, some are quicker with off-road wheels, some have advanced handling flags that change from DLC to DLC. It's just a mess of different racing, car creation and track creation philosophies, and that's difficult to find a common testing ground to work within that's relevant to as many people as possible. A perfect example of what I'm talking about when it comes to testing relevancy is actually more apparent with the top speed testing videos. With the top speed testing, I've always used that same piece of road on the map to, get between the two checkpoints. It's just a regular piece of road, but it's basically the straightest piece of road on the entire map. But it is a regular road, so that road has little bumps and micro bumps all over it, which give very, very small curb boosts. It's not major, it's not like hitting a regular curb around the lap time track, for example, but I sometimes get asked questions why I'm not testing on completely flat stunt road pieces as some other people do. Well, the top speeds on those completely flat stunt road pieces are actually slower than they are on a regular road. But then you can also get much higher top speeds than what I test by going into the city and curb boosting your heart out. So it's all about finding a sort of a midpoint and a balance that's going to be the most relevant as possible. How frequently are you going to be on a completely flat stunt road piece for like 5 miles to make use of a top speed that you get from that situation? So that is, the top speed side of it. But then when you come over to the lap time side of it, you've got all these other variables as well, in terms of curb boosting, short shifting, how you accelerate. There's so many other variables that go into it. And also the track makeup. Do you have a track that's more stunt road oriented and more flat, or do you have a circuit that's like a city circuit where it's completely open, or a more of a hills circuit where it's got lots of up and downs, or a Blaine County circuit that's regular road but relatively flat? It's just, there's so many variables, it's almost impossible to find a common ground, and there's always going to be someone who has a problem with the way that you choose to test. And then on top of all that, do I even have the skill to do it anymore? I race a lot less now than I used to, and there are a lot quicker people than me these days who are taking advantage of all the nuances of the game that I'm not perfect with. From short shifting to brake boosting to all the other little features. The last thing I want to do is continue testing and put out inaccurate information. I'd rather not do it at all. I've truly tried to do the best that I can over the years. All of the lap times that you're seeing in this video are my lap times, and as I've said, some of them are a bit old now. I've been in different life states, mental states, and game states throughout the course of testing all of the vehicles that you're seeing throughout these 5 videos. Unless you're testing everything all at once, it's never going to be absolutely perfect. And that's just not possible to do all of the time, especially with over 500 cars. If you've got a selection of, say, 20 supercars and you just keep retesting those all of the time, that's much more doable than trying to test everything and do it all of the time as well. I've just done what I can over the years and tried my best. But, with things like brake boosting and short shifting, none of that was discovered when I started testing. For the higher level racing community, it's almost a different game now to what it used to be back then. do I aim for my testing to be relevant to those people, even if most people playing the game aren't doing all of the tricks required to get the lap times that are produced from the cars in that way? And if I do, can I even maximize the cars when driving like that? Frankly, I'm a little bit doubtful that I have the requisite skill and experience with all of these little tricks to be able to get the maximum out of the cars. So, but then, if I choose to bring it back a little bit and continue testing the way that I've always testing, do the lap times then become less relevant to certainly the higher level racing community? Whether they're less relevant to the wider population, I don't know, but it's just a difficult fine line to balance, and truly I don't really know what to do and what way to sort of progress with it. Back when I first started car testing, I was the only one doing it. I talked about it in the first video a few days ago that I was alone. It was new, it was fresh, and nobody had really thought to take cars around a track. But now there's an entire racing community who oftentimes know everything before I do. That broken spoilers video and the stuff about the X80 Proto, the fact-finding video from a few weeks ago, that was a very unique moment where I actually got to publish some findings about GTA cars that the wider racing community and people in general didn't already know beforehand. And, that has sort of taken some of the enjoyment out of the car testing aspect, because testing new things for the first time and bringing the information to people was always a fun aspect of the testing videos back in the day, but now I don't really get to experience that. Obviously I do on a wider scale, but not to everybody. And then it also causes me to question my ability to do it in the first place. If we've got a big community of people who are probably able to do it better than I can, why should I do it myself? What good am I in the end when people can do it better? In a way, the racing community that I've sort of helped to foster and grow in the early days on this game is almost the very thing that makes me question